I get a witness? If you hear me say, if you feel me say, if you feel me say, yeah, 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 yeah. Let me hear you say, yeah, 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 yeah. I need you to fill me up, fill me up, fill me up, until I overflow, overflow. Keep her on my way, keep her on my way. I need you to fill me up, fill me up, Lord, I need your love.
Shalom, Yasharahla. Welcome to another Tuesday Bible Basics. My name is Chaama, and to my left is
Brother Yatab.
Tonight we're going to be talking about the ceremonial law, continuing our 5-week classes on the 5 categories of law. The law is so beautiful. A lot of people get misconstrued and they think it's too hard to follow. That's contrary to what Scripture says. Give for me Colossians 2:16-17. Most High said his law is not going to be grievous to us. That's going to show us what's to come and help us love our neighbors, help us live a fruitful life, help us come out of this captivity.
The book of Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, on a respective and holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ.
So we see a lot of the different Christian churches use that to say that we don't have to follow the law. But when they say, let no man judge you, what do they do to us when we're celebrating dedication, tabernacles, and not celebrating Christmas, not celebrating Easter? They judge us. They say, why don't you do the thing everybody else is doing? So in context, this scripture was written in Colosso, which was known for having a lot of pagan holidays. They had over 150 holidays. So they were getting judged for being different. He said, let no man judge you. Read that last part again, starting with but.
But the body is of Christ.
And this is another part where it gets misconstrued. If we get into the Hebrew for the word but, it is de in Greek, G1161. It means but, moreover, and. It's saying this is a shadow of things to come, meaning it's showing you an image of what's come. The Passover lamb showed the Messiah dying as our ultimate sacrifice. The Feast of Weeks show the Spirit coming to us, as we'll get to in Acts chapter 2. These are shadow things coming that are foreshadowing. They're showing us what's to come. And we should not let no one judge us for going against the world and going to the Most High's will. Because, and the body is of Christ. So with that, let's get into this law. Let's get into Daniel 7:25 and see why everything was changed. We will notice a pattern. Every time we have a holy day, which is part of our ceremonial laws, they change it, either by day or change it to a pagan holiday. And they did that with purpose. But it says the earth will speak, and we're learning our ceremonial law. Read.
The book of Daniel chapter 7 and verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and the dividing of time.
So we say you should think to change times and laws. What it means by that is even though they've changed it to Christmas, to Sunday worship, to all these pagan holidays, we're still able to do a research, search the ways of our Father, and read the scriptures and find out what we actually are supposed to celebrate. And one thing we also see is that these are signs, right? So the ceremonial law is signs to distinct us from the other nations because we are supposed to be a holy people. The word holy is Kadash, which means set apart. Let me pull up the definition of signs for y'all. And while I'm getting that, will you get Exodus 31, 13 through 17? We're going to pull up the definition of sign. Shows that these laws are to set us apart. Read.
The book of Exodus, chapter 31, and verse 13. Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you. Ye shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever.
So we see this is a sign between the Most High and his chosen people, the chosen people of Israel forever. It's something to set us apart with other nations and see that we're chosen, that we're different, that we're upheld to a different standard. So the word sign is H226, a wat, and it means sign, signal, a distinguishing mark. So we see the Most High give us certain signs, which most are in our ceremonial law, for us to be visibly set apart from the other nations, and also to remind us that we're visibly set apart. We're supposed to be a righteous nation. So now if you will get for me Exodus 13, 6 through 10. So we see that the Shabbat, the 7-day Sabbath, Friday sundown and Saturday sundown, is one of the first signs given unto us, one of a few. We'll see another one right now. Read.
Book of Exodus, chapter 13, and verse 6. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the seventh day shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be a sign unto thee upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt.
So we see there's a sign between our eyes and on our hands. That's not meaning literally. We're not supposed to get the laws tattooed on us literally. That's meaning in our hands, which is our actions. Between our eyes, that's our thoughts. In our mouths, that's our words. We should be speaking of the law continuously, teaching them to our children, being an example for those of us still in the world to come back to the truth. We should be holding up that light. And we see that just like the Sabbath, the Feast of Unleavened Bread is another sign, showing the world when we step away from the food the world eats and eat that unleavened bread. That's a sign showing that we're the Most High's people, and also reminding us that it's not us that is the power. It's the Most High. That's the power. That's the Most High that saved us, that chose us when we're the lowest of people, and continues to choose us and bring us out of the situations that we're in. And the Ceremonial Law is so beautiful because it's a testimony of his mercy, his grace, and his love for us. Now we're going to pull up the Easter PowerPoint. We've seen in Daniel chapter 7 that he sought to change laws and times. So we'll see that Passover is the 14th day of the first month in springtime. Easter, what they call Easter, falls around the same time as Passover. We're having technical difficulties tonight, so we can't show you the PowerPoint, but I'll be able to read it to you. And this is from AOP.com/blog/the truth about Easter traditions, if y'all want to look that up for yourselves. This is the origin of Easter. The name Easter is never associated with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ in the original scriptures, and it's actually derived from the word Eostre. Eostre was Queen Semiramis, the wife of Nimrod, known as evil but enterprising great-grandson. So we see that the name itself tells us that it's not biblical. It goes all the way back to Nimrod, the first man to really defy the Most High, who will see all modern holidays that a lot of us call Christian holidays or even holidays of other religions trace themselves back to Nimrod. They changed it just enough to make it seem like it was biblical if you did not do the research for yourselves. The beginning of Easter goes back to the springtime ritual began by Queen Semiramis following the death of her son Tammuz. Legend has it that through her tears, Tammuz could be resurrected and the reincarnated form of new vegetation on earth. With the spread of Christianity many years later, it was common practice to adapt the existing non-Christian festivals and assimilate them into Christian theology. And this was the Roman Catholic Church that did this. Because Queen Semiramis, also called Eostre, was the goddess of spring, and her symbolism dealt with renewal and rebirth. The Christian belief in the resurrection of Christ fit well with these themes. Today, American history teaches us that Easter was dismissed as a pagan holiday by the nation's founding Puritans. It did not begin to be observed widely until after the Civil War. So we see that around the time of King James, who if y'all don't know, he was an Israelite, and he put together a committee getting the King James Version of the Bible, the most accurate one at the time, is to this day one of the most accurate ones. At the time, a lot of people were going back to biblical laws, the way that we're instructed by the Most High to live. So they were not celebrating Christmas, and they were not celebrating Easter until very modern times. And we'll see that it has its origins in ancient Babylon. And they twisted it just enough to make you think it was biblical, but it's really not. And that's why going into the law and seeing for yourselves is so vitally important. So with that, we're going to move forward and go into Ezekiel 8, verses 13 through 14, to see what the Bible has to say about Tammuz. We'll see the Bible actually talks about Christmas. It talks about Easter. It talks about these things under their original names, under their original descriptions. It's not going to say Christmas or Easter because those are modern day names. It will say Tammuz. It will say Asterisk, which is another name for Eostre. Read.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 8, in verse 13. He said also unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the Lord's door, to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north. And behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house. And behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east. And they worshiped the sun toward the east. Then he said unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to the nose.
So we see there, testing. So we see there that they were weeping for Tammuz. They were following these Babylonian big holidays, their pagan traditions that ended up being renamed Easter. So under the original names, we are not supposed to celebrate these. We're not supposed to call what's evil as good and what's good evil. And we see in the book of Daniel, this was a prophecy that people were going to try to change this to separate us from the Most High, because these are signs upon us marking our relationship with the Most High, that we are his chosen people. Yasharahla, princes of power. So let's pull up Exodus 12, 1 through 28. When we address when is the new year according to Scripture? Is it when everything is dead, or is it when everything is being birthed and given life in the springtime? And we'll see that until very recently, it was always in the springtime. A lot of these changes have been within the 200 years, coincidentally, once chattel slavery was ended. Read.
Book of Exodus, chapter 12, and verse 1. The Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb.
So we see in verse 2 that this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. So that's the month Abib or Abaya, which is after the vernal equinox in spring, normally around March to April, when life is bearing fruit, when life is starting. Just like when you birth a baby, you're not birthing the baby at the end of its life when it's dying, you're birthing it when it's beginning its life. The same with our years. They start when life is becoming anew, when life is becoming fresh. We see a lot of things in the Bible are symbolic and have to do with nature, like our calendar coming off the moon after the stars and the suns. The Most High was amazing. He set up our ceremonial law in that we don't need any calendars. We can keep it for ourselves just based off of nature, just by reading his word and listening to his instructions. Keep reading.
Verse 5, Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread. And with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof.
So we see that this is part of a ceremony. It will keep describing that's for an exact reason as a remembrance. This is part of our ceremonial law. The lamb is the only sacrifice we still physically offer because it's a ceremony reminding us of the Most High bringing us up out of Egypt. Keep reading.
Verse 10, And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are.
So we see right there, the word token is a wat, the same as sign. That blood is going to be a sign separating us from the Egyptians. So when this happened, all their firstborn males died, and ours were preserved. Read.
And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations.
Read that again.
And ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
Forever. So this was never done away with. We're supposed to keep this amongst our generations forever, to tell our children what he did to us in the land of Egypt, that he freed us from the oppression we're going through there. And he sent us back to our homeland Israel. This is why we're going to be sent back again in the future. Read.
Verse 15, 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be an holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you.
So we see that on this Sabbath, because today we can't work, we can still do what every man must eat, so we can still cook. Whereas on the weekly Sabbath, we cannot cook. So there is a distinction right there. Read.
Verse 17, and ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in the selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at even, ye shall eat unleavened bread unto the 21st day of the month at even. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel.
Drop to verse 24.
Verse 24, and ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever.
Keep reading.
And it shall come to pass, when ye be come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, and delivered our homes. And the people bowed the head and worshipped. And the children of Israel went away, and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So did they.
So we see that they did as Yahweh commanded Moses. They followed the instructions the law is given to us. And they said they're doing it so that they should teach their kids as they're growing up, because they're seeing these ceremonies. They're seeing us keep the feasts according to what the Most High said, where everything has a meaning. And it's beautiful seeing our kids being raised in this truth. They're asking questions. What does this mean? Why do we burn the lamb? Why are we eating it with bitter herbs? Why are we eating it with unleavened bread? And it's just something physical that they can see. It reminds them and teaches them our laws and helps them just take pride in being Israel and take pride in who they are and take pride and also be humble that the Most High decided to choose us. Out of all the nations of the earth, he chose us, the lowliest nation. So we should always be coming with thankfulness when we're coming to these ceremonies, just grateful that he chose us. Because I came into truth when I was in my mid-20s. How many times did I sin? How many times did I do sins worthy of death? But he still had the mercy to choose me, as he's choosing all of you who are making a choice to come into these laws. Now we're going to go into the PowerPoint about the New Year's. Because like I said, the New Year's is supposed to be in spring. So why did they change it? So this is from resolutiondenver.com, History of New Year's Eve. The origin of January 1st, marking the new year, dates back to 46 BC, so before Christ, before the Messiah, when Julius Caesar developed the solar-based Julian calendar. This is after the old lunar-based Roman calendar became effective. So we'll see, as we've talked about in other lessons, that our calendar is lunar-based, and it didn't become ineffective per se, but it takes effort to stay on track. The solar calendar allowed them to be lazier and not have to physically see the moons every month. Another reason behind making January 1st the start of the new year was to honor Janus, the Roman god of beginnings who had two faces, who January is also named after. This means that he could go back to the past and move forward to the future. To celebrate the occasion, ancient people would offer sacrifices to the god of beginnings, add lower branches to their homes as decorations, and exchange gifts. So we see a lot of things that we do to celebrate the New Year's are things originally done to celebrate the pagan false god Janus. But it's got rebranded to us as New Year's, and most people don't even know this. That's why it's so important to research our history, research the origins of the different traditions you've been taught, and see are they biblical or are they pagan? Because all things have two origins. So now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 17, verse 9 through 15. And we're going to get another sign that was given upon our people. And this one is a pretty important one. We'll see that the signs are physical and they're meant to really just show our relationship to the Most High, and they all have meaning behind them.
Book of Genesis, chapter 17, and verse 9. God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you must be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. Every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed, he that is born in thy house, and he that is brought with thy money, must needs be circumcised.
So we see it's applied to everyone in our houses, because this time we had servants of other nations, even though they weren't Israel. If they were in our households, they were still held to this same law. And this law was a token that we're a sign put upon our people. That circumcision is also one of the requirements to celebrate Passover. For any male to celebrate Passover, he has to be circumcised. And the beautiful thing is, if we were not raised in truth and didn't know this, we can get circumcised older, because from that point forward, we become a new man. And then we're held to these laws. Leviticus 23, verses 10 through 11. So I hope that this is edifying for y'all, and y'all are able to learn something about ceremonial laws and how these signs really show that we're a set-apart people, that we're a holy people to the Most High. Read.
Book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I gave unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. And ye shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it.
Go to Luke 24, 1 through 7. So we see that another thing they try to say about Easter, we call Easter Sunday, they say they honor it because Yahushua rose on Sunday. But we'll see that Sunday during Passover was already one of our days that we observed. It's when we waved the first fruits. Just like that was our first fruits offering. Yahushua was our first fruits. It's those little changes that throw us off. Because when you're swimming to a distance, if you're only off by 1 foot in the wrong direction, over time, you're going to end up very far off. And that's what they have done in changing these. Read.
Book of Luke, chapter 24, and verse 1. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. And they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre. And they entered in and found not the body of Lord Yahushua. And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, 2 men stood by them in shining garments. And as they were afraid and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, Why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spake unto you when he was yet in Galilee, saying, The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and the third day rise again.
Excuse me. So we see that it says in verse 1, now upon the first day of the week. So we know that the first day of the week starts Saturday at sundown. Right? So this is Sunday morning, which they try to say Easter Sunday, but we see if we go back to Leviticus 23, that was our Omer sheaf offering when we offered the first fruits, and Yahushua was the first fruit. That's how that these holy days are shadows. They show what's going to come. He was a Passover lamb who rose on the day of first fruits, the Omer wave offering. Go back to Leviticus 23, start at verse 15, and read 15 to 16. So we're going to keep going through our whole days, and so how beautiful the days the Most High set apart are for us. And people say that we're missing out, but our whole days are 7 or 8 days long, most of them. We're supposed to celebrate with joyness. Read.
Book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 15. And you shall count unto you from the morrow, after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath, shall ye number 50 days. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord.
Drop down to verse 21.
Verse 21. And ye shall proclaim on the selfsame day that it may be an holy convocation unto you. Ye shall do no servile work therein. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations.
So we see that this holy day, which is called a Feast of Weeks, as I read, it was counted 7 weeks and 1 day from the Sabbath during Passover. So let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, and show this was a shadow of things to come. And we'll see what Paul was talking about when he said these are shadows of things to come. Let no man judge you in keeping these.
Book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 1 through 5. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues, like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost, and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance.
So we see that the Spirit was given on this date, that was called Pentecost. So let's read the definition of Pentecost. This is Strong's G4005. It's Pentecoste. It's Pentecost, the 50th day, the second of the 3 great Hebrew feasts, celebrated at Jerusalem yearly, the 7th week after Passover, in grateful recognition of the completed harvest. So Pentecost is just the Greek name for Feast of Weeks, which we just read about. So because they were observing our ceremonial laws and keeping our holy days, they were in the right place at the right time because they were following the commandments and they were given the Holy Spirit, which gave them the gift of tongues, able to speak in other languages they did not speak, to testify to all people who were in Jerusalem at the time from around the world. So now let's go back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verses 16 through 17. And we're going to see what the definition was talking about when it says the second of the great feasts. Because there was 3 feasts that we were commanded, all males were commanded to be where the Most High place is named, which at the time was where the temple was built, which was Jerusalem. Read.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, and verse 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee.
So at that time, there were specific things they were supposed to bring. Now when we come to these feast days, we bring the best of food that we can cook, the best drinks. We bring the best of us, the best of our spirit, and we celebrate and we give joy for everything the Most High has done for us. Because he didn't have to choose us, but he chose to choose the lowliest people and put us above all nations of the earth. So now let's go to Leviticus 23, and we're going to read verses 22 through 44. Now we're going to start getting into the fall holy days. Because we see most of the spring holy days were fulfilled with his first coming. So the fall holy days still have a fulfillment to come. Read.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 22. And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not make clean riddance of the corners of thy field when thou reapest. Neither shalt thou gather any gleaning of thy harvest. Thou shalt leave them unto the poor and to the stranger. I am the Lord your God.
So we see right there that in the midst of all these ceremonial laws telling us the holy days, it's saying take care of the poor. It's saying make sure that when you have your own farm, you have your own orchard, that you do not reap from the corner of your field. Anything that's on the edges of your property, you just let it be. Anyone who's homeless, anyone who's poor can just walk by, pick an apple, pick some grain, eat something to get them through. Because we're supposed to always take care of the poor, take care of the needy, take care of the orphans, and this is one of the ways that we did that. So it sees that in the midst of the ceremonial law, it just emphasizes that we're supposed to be grateful and we're supposed to be taking care of those in need. Read.
Verse 23, the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying,
So we see right there is the Feast of Trumpets. That is the 1st day of the 7th month. And that is when we blow the trumpets. Just remembering, again, having a holy convocation, coming together as one, and remembering everything the Most High did for us. And that is something that we've also seen been changed and been called, people call a New Year's. What we see in the Bible is never called a New Year's. It's called a blowing trumpets. So our New Year's is the 1st day of Abib before Passover. Read.
Verse 27, also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. Whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul shall I destroy from among thy people.
So it says, whoever soul shall not be afflicted. So this is our only mandatory fast day. Everyone in Israel, from young to old, no food, no water, from even to even for 24 hours. Because it's humbling ourselves before the Most High. It's saying spiritually that we can't do this of ourselves. Only the Most High can do this. And trying to reset ourselves. Really ask forgiveness for any sins we might have unintentionally made, any signs we could go off, and just give mercy that we're still in this walk, they still have grace upon us, that we have still have a chance to make it into the kingdom. Read.
Verse 29, for whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he should be cut off from among his people. Whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people. And ye shall do no manner of work. It should be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
So we see that word forever again. These ceremonial laws were never done away with. He's going to keep saying forever, forever throughout your generations. This is for all time. There's even prophecies talking about after the Messiah comes back, we're still going to be observing these feasts. Read.
Verse 32, it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at even, from even unto even shall ye celebrate your Sabbath. The Lord spake to Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles, for 7 days unto the Lord. On the 1st day shall be a holy convocation. You should do no servile work therein.
So we see that this is another one of our holy days. In the 7th month is the Feast of Tabernacles, where we're supposed to dwell in tents and remember the Most High. Read.
Verse 33, the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. On the 1st day shall be a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And on the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly. and ye shall do no servile work therein.
So we see something important there that we're going to get to in a second is the first and the eighth day were solemn assemblies. There are Sabbaths that we're not supposed to work. We're going to see further on in the Feast of Dedication that we're supposed to keep it as the Feast of Tabernacles, meaning no work on the first and eighth days. Read verse 37 going down.
Verse 37, these are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and drink offerings, everything upon his day. Beside the Sabbaths of the Lord, and beside your gifts, and beside all your vows, and beside all your freewill offerings, which ye give unto the Lord.
So these are the feasts of Yahweh. These are not our feasts. These are not man-made. These are his feasts, which we're supposed to celebrate throughout our generations. These are the holy days he said wants us to celebrate, wants us to feast on and come together on. Read.
Verse 39, also on the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. And ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. And ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days. 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feast of the Lord.
So we see here that he said, all that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths. So this doesn't just apply to a so-called religion. This is all the bloodline descendants of Israel. We are commanded to keep these holy days, to dwell in these booths for Feast of Tabernacles, to keep Passover, to circumcise our males. This applies to all of us. And coming back to this law, in addition to the rest of them, will help bring us out of this captivity and bring us back to the promised land. So now go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4, 52 to 59. So now we're going to see the feast that we are actually celebrating right now. We're not celebrating Christmas. We're celebrating the feast that we were commanded to celebrate. Read.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 4, and verse 52. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs, and with citharans, and harps, and cymbals. Verse 55, then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the God of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with the crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the children, among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Verse 59, moreover Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication altar should be kept in their season from year to year, by the space of 8 days, from the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness.
So we see that this is the Feast of Dedication, also called Hanukkah in our original language. We're supposed to be celebrating the memorial of the temple when the Greeks made it illegal and were killing us for keeping our laws. And our brethren rose up, fought for our culture, and were able to retake the temple and rededicate the temple. So we're celebrating the victory of our forefathers, specifically the Maccabees. So now we're going to go to PowerPoint on Christmas, because during the exact same time we do dedication, they brought Christmas. Again, changing times and seasons and making it very similar, right? So this is from voiceandvisioninc.org, A Brief History of Christmas. The origins of Christmas stem from both the pagan and Roman cultures. The Romans actually celebrated 2 holidays in the month of December. The first was Saturnalia, which was a 2-week festival honoring their god of agriculture, Saturn. On December 25th, they celebrated the birth of Mithra, their sun god. We see that all sun god worship goes back to Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. Tammuz is the same as Mithra. Both celebrations were raucous, drunken parties, which we see that a lot of times Christmas festivities, New Year's festivities become raucous, drunken, out-of-order parties, because we're supposed to drink but not be drunk. We're not supposed to do anything in excess. Also in December, in which the darkest day of the year falls, the pagan cultures lit bonfires and candles to keep the darkness at bay. That's where the Christmas lights come from. The Romans also incorporated this tradition to their own celebrations. So this is the Roman Catholic Church. As Christianity spread across Europe, the Christian clergy were not able to curb the pagan customs and celebrations. Since no one knew Yasharahla's date of birth, they adapted the pagan ritual in the celebration of his birthday. So we see they adapted their culture, the ways of the heathens, which we are specifically commanded not to do. So this is from gilead.net/study/holiday/Christmas origins 2. And this shows the Babylonian origins of what we call Christmas. When Nimrod, the founder of Babylon, died, Semiramis told people that her husband's spirit had taken possession of the sun. She encouraged the people to pay homage to her husband by worshiping the sun. That's where sun worship comes from. Thus began the evil practice of sun worship. Later on, when Semiramis gave birth to a son by the name of Tammuz, she hid her lascivious form of living by lying to the people. She told them that she was miraculously overshadowed by the spirit of her dead husband Nimrod. And it was in this way she was able to bring forth this so-called son of God. Semiramis also declared that her son Tammuz was in actuality the return or rebirth of her husband Nimrod. Hence, through this teaching, the doctrine of reincarnation was born, and since Tammuz was born on December 25th, this day was highly honored and recognized by Nimrod's supporters. Now, for that this date, December 25th, was observed in honor of the birth of Tammuz, long before Christianity existed. Not until many centuries later, this pagan custom was Christianized as being the birthday of Christ, which they renamed Christmas Day. So we'll see that you are celebrating someone's birthday, but it's not the Messiah's. It's Nimrod's wife's son, Tammuz. And we'll see that through research. You're not able to pinpoint exactly when the Messiah's birthday is, but we are able to place it through records approximately in the spring, and definitely not on December 25th. So up here, y'all can't see it, but we got a picture that shows Nimrod with a reindeer and an evergreen tree in his hand, looking very similar to a modern-day picture of Santa. Right? They both got long beards. They're both holding reindeers and both holding Christmas trees. It's showing that all they did was just rename it, right? It was similar to the process of Hellenization that Alexander the Greek did when he took customs from different peoples and put them into Greek culture, kind of made them one. That's what the Catholic Church did. They made the different pagan customs one, ended up twisting the scriptures, actually outlawing the law, so that way modern day holidays are really paganism disguised. Again, changing laws and times. And so you might wonder where the name Santa Claus comes from. So we've all heard the song that's up on the rooftop, click, 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 something, something, oh, say Nick. So, oh, say Nick is one of the names for Santa Claus. So if you Google, oh, Nick, it's used as a name of the devil, according to Merriam-Webster.com. So oh, Nick literally is a nickname for the devil or Satan, which is what we call Santa Claus. So that is literally satanic worship dating back to the time of Nimrod. So now we're going to go to Jeremiah 10, verses 1 through 5. We're going to see how in the scriptures actually talks about Christmas. But it does not say to do it, quite the contrary. Read.
Book of Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 1. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen.
Say that again.
Learn not the way of the heathen.
So we're not supposed to learn the ways of those around us. We're not supposed to conform to the ways of the world, but however be renewed in our mind daily, seeking the ways of the Most High. Right now, the Catholic Church is talking about updating their Bible to be more in form with modern day society. That's not how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to go to the ways of the Most High because his ways are above man. Only he knows the right path and the wrong path. We're supposed to just be obedient children, seeking his way. The same as anyone who's a parent, as I am, when you give your kid a command, you tell them to do something, especially when they're younger, it's for their own good. You expect them to obey you. You don't expect them to say, well, my dad wouldn't actually mean this. This is what he actually means. You would be mad. But we do that with the Most High. We do this with our Father in heaven. He said, do these things this way and don't do these according to the way of the heathens. Read.
Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them.
So that goes into astrology. People will blame them being disrespectful or having a bad day on this constellation is this way, instead of taking ownership for their own behavior and repenting, which means to turn away from what they were doing and correcting themselves. They put the blame on everything but themselves. Read.
For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe.
So one cutteth a tree out of the forest. Read.
They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not.
So they put decorations on it, right? They bring it into their house, they put decorations on it, and they fasten it so that it stands upright. What does that sound like to y'all? That sounds mighty like a Christmas tree to me. Bring it into your house, standing it upright, putting decorations on it, gold, silver, or the little, because most people can't afford gold and silver now, a little imitation gold and silver. Read.
They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good.
So we see that people give so much power to Santa and to the Christmas tree that they're teaching our kids, Santa is naughty and niceless, instead of following the Most High's commandments and knowing he's the only one that can bless you or can curse you. And we also see that from the time of Babylon, this was a custom that was prevalent among the heathen and other nations around us, and we're not supposed to do it. So just because it got renamed and it got Christianized does not make it right. Do not call what is evil good or what's good evil. However, come into the ways of the Most High and celebrate his feast days. Because we ain't celebrating for one day, we celebrating for 8 days feast of dedication. We're going to get to in Purim. We're supposed to give gifts to each other in Purim and gifts to the poor for 2 days, not one. Our feast days are so much more festive, more holier than anything that the world has to offer, if only we just obeyed. So now, go to 1 Maccabees chapter 13, verse 50 through 52. And we're going to see another one of our holidays that is in remembrance of one of our ancestors. Because a lot of holidays are remembering certain events. So most of them are remembering being freed from oppression. Whether it's the time of the Egyptians, the time of the Greeks. Read.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 13, and verse 50. Then cried they to Simon, beseeching him to be at one with them, which thing he granted them. And when he had put them out from thence, he cleansed the tower from pollutions, and entered into it the 23 day of the second month, in the 171st year, with thanksgiving, and branches of palm trees, and with harps, and cymbals, and with viols, and hymns, and songs, because there was destroyed a great enemy out of Israel.
Verse 52.
He ordained also that every day should be kept every year with gladness. Moreover, the heel of the temple that was by the tower he made stronger than it was, and there he dwelt himself with his company.
So we see that Simon Maccabeus, the brother of Judas Maccabeus, who we celebrate feast dedication and remembrance of his deeds, he saved us from our enemies when they were attacking us, killing us, persecuting us. And y'all, free time, read the book of Maccabees, both first and second, see what our ancestors were going through during the Greek oppression, about 70 to 150 years approximately before the time of the Messiah. So that will be the memorial Simon, which we are commanded to celebrate every year, part of our ceremonial law. So now go to 2 Maccabees chapter 15, verses 28 through 37. Read.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 14, and verse 27.
Chapter 15, verse 28.
Oh, chapter 15, and verse 28. Now when the battle was done, returning again with joy, they knew that Nicanor lay down in his harness.
So Nicanor was one of the captains of the Greek army at the time, who acted like he was our friend. He acted like he was trying to make both peoples be successful, similar to how certain people will say, hey, they're for us and not for us. And then by trickery, he ended up killing a bunch of people in the temple, and it started a pretty massive war. And this is celebrating his destruction, or freeing ourselves from that oppression. Read.
Then they made a great shout and a noise, praising the Almighty in their own language. And Judah, who was ever the chief defenders of the citizens, both in body and in mind, and who continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder, and bring them to Jerusalem.
So we see that they praised Almighty in their own language, in Hebrew, the tongue of our ancestors, because at the time, the Greeks were trying to make everyone speak Greek, say they were Greeks, say they were one people, and did not want them doing the customs of their ancestors or the language of their ancestors. Very common to a practice we see today. And we're all one people, we're all the same, but that's contrary to what the scripture says when he divided the nations, when he chose Israel amongst all people. Read verse 31.
Verse 31. So when he was there and called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower and showed them the vile Nicanor's head in the hand of the blasphemer, which with proud brags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty. And when he had cut out the tongue of that ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls, and hang up the reward of his madness before the temple.
Read down to verse 37.
Verse 35. So every man praised toward the heaven the glorious Lord, saying, Blessed be he that hath kept his own place undefiled. He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all of the help of the Lord. And they ordained all with the common decree, and in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 13th day of the 7th month, which in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Mordecai's day. Thus went it with Nicanor, and from that time forth the Hebrews and the city in their power. And here will I make an end.
So we see that we are supposed to celebrate that every single year in remembrance the Most High freeing us from the oppression of Nicanor, right before Mordecai's day. So now we're going to read what Mordecai's day, when the Most High freed us from the Amalekites trying to destroy us in the time of the Persian captivity. So we're going to go to the book of Esther, chapter 9, verses 20 through 22. So we see that a lot of our holy days, a lot of our ceremonial law is remembering the Most High freeing us from oppression. The same way we're currently being oppressed in this captivity, and he's going to free us as long as we turn towards him with all our heart, mind, and soul and come back to his commandments. Yes, we see that pattern of these are celebrations. These are acknowledging the Most High's power. It doesn't matter how numbered we are. It doesn't matter if we're just 300 farmers never fought their lives like it was during the time of the Maccabees, because they were priests. They weren't warriors. And they were from little towns, a little town of Modin. And yet they rose up against the Greeks and were able to free them from that oppression. And there's 3 holy days, dedication, memorial assignment, destruction, Ninganar, all because of these that they did during the time of the Greeks through the power of the Most High. Read.
The book of Esther, chapter 9 and verse 20. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day. And they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is the lot, to consume them and to destroy them.
So we see there that we're supposed to celebrate for 2 days to celebrate the freedom from when Haman tried to commit genocide against our people, and the Most High freedom from us. So those 2 days, we're supposed to be giving each other presents and celebrating. Instead of 1 day for a pagan holiday, we're supposed to give each other presents for 2 days and just celebrate the salvation of our people at that time, because we were literally freed from what could have been death. The Most High saved us through the hand of Mordecai and through the hand of his niece Esther. So now we're going to go through Genesis chapter 24, verses 1 through 4, then 50 to 51. And we're going to start talking about our marriage rights and our betrothal rights, because this is also part of our ceremonial law. Read.
Book of Genesis chapter 24, verse 1 through 4. Genesis 24 and 1, and it reads, And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house, that ruled over all that he had, Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, Thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. But thou shalt go unto my country, and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac.
So we see that he wanted to take him a wife from his people, not from the other nations. Drop down to verse 50.
Verse 50. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, The thing proceedeth from the Lord. We cannot speak unto thee bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before thee. Take her and go, and let her be thy master's son's wife, as the Lord hath spoken.
So we see that the fathers, and in this case her older brother, because their father was a little bit older, not so well, they gave her away. You always give to the fathers for permission. You ask their permission to court them, ask their permission to marry them. Drop down to verse 58 through 67.
Genesis chapter 24 and verse 58. And they called Rebekah and said unto her, Wilt thou go with this man? And she said, I will go. And they sent away Rebekah their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men. And they blessed Rebekah, and said unto her, Thou art our sister, be thou the mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them. And Rebekah arose, and her damsels, and they rode upon the camels, and followed the man. And the servant took Rebekah, and went his way. And Isaac came from the way of the well, Laharar, for he dwelt in the south country. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the eventide. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw, and behold, the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off the camel. For she had said unto the servant, What man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant had said, It is my master. Therefore she took a veil and covered herself.
So we see that also was a custom of our people was our women wore veils whenever they were meeting men for the first time. That's when the customs actually originated with us. Read.
And the servant told Isaac all things that he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death.
So we see that he took Rebekah, which is the act of consummating the marriage. So becoming married didn't have to do with any certificates, any ceremonies, even though that did become part of our custom. But the act of marriage is the act of consummating the marriage. Once you consummate it, you are married, whether you like it or not. And then as a man or as a woman, you have your own duties according to the scriptures, and you are held to those. So really got to think and be patient with who you choose to lay down with. Because contrary to popular society, who you lay down with is your wife or is your husband. Go to Tobit chapter 4, verse 12.
The book of Tobit, chapter 4, and verse 12. Tobit chapter 4 and verse 12, and it reads, Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe.
So we see the seed of thy fathers. So from the patriarchal line, their fathers are Israelite, his fathers are Israelite, and so on. We're supposed to take wives from the children of our people. Read.
For we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land.
Because we needed to know that the men or women that we were marrying came from the same line, the same culture, the same customs, that they were just as hungry for the law and to honor the Most High as we were. That was very important, and parents were very instrumental in their children's marriages at this time. They had to know who the other person's people were. So go to chapter 7, verse 13.
Tobit chapter 7 and verse 13. Then he called his daughter Sarah, and she came to her father, and he took her by the hand, and gave her to be wife to Tobias, saying, Behold, take her after the law of Moses, and lead her away to thy father. And he blessed him.
So we see that her father gave away and said, take her after the law of Moses, which again, the act of consummating the marriage was a marriage. Read Tobit chapter 8, verses 5 through 7, then drop down to verse 19.
The book of Tobit, chapter 8 and verse 5. Then began Tobias to say, Blessed art thou, O God of our fathers, and blessed is thy holy and glorious name forever. Let the heavens bless thee, and all thy creatures. Thou madest Adam, and gavest him Eve, his wife, for an helper and stay. Of them came mankind. Thou hast said, It is not good that man should be alone. Let us make unto him an aid like unto himself. And now, Lord, I take not this my sister for lust, but uprightly. Therefore, mercifully ordain that we may become aged together.
So we see that he's not taking her because of lust, because of how she looks. He's taking her uprightly according to the law of Moses, because he knows that she's just as hungry to keep the laws as he is. Because that's the most important thing. It's not the physical, it's the spiritual. It is the person you're choosing to spend your life with going to keep the commandments. Are they just as hungry to serve the Most High as you are? Or they want to be one accord and teach your children to serve the Most High? Verse 19.
And he kept the wedding feast 14 days.
And they also had a wedding feast, which was part of tradition. They celebrated them consummating the marriage, and they feasted for 14 days. Again, we see that our feasts are 7 days, 8 days, 14 days. Our feasts are really celebrations. We're in the middle of the Feast of Dedication, and I can honestly say that I've never celebrated as much as I've celebrated once I came to the truth, because we're really honoring the Most High. We're celebrating according to the way that he commanded us to celebrate. This is beautiful. This is a blessing. All right, now go to the book of Sirach, also called Ecclesiasticus, chapter 7, verse 25.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 7, and verse 25. The book of Sirach, chapter 7, and verse 25, and it reads, Marry thy daughter, and so shalt thou have performed a weighty matter, but give her to a man of understanding.
So, excuse me. So we see that the fathers were giving away their daughters, supposed to give away to a man of understanding. Read verse 26.
Verse 26, Hast thou a wife after thy mind? Forsake her not, but give not thyself over to a light woman.
So we see again that they got to be on one accord. Don't be choosing a light woman, meaning not physical body weight, but light of thought, right? Giving over to frivolousness, doing whatever the ways of the world are, not seeking the Most High first and foremost, because that comes before anything else. Because it does not matter what either one looks like. If you're not seeking the Most High, if you're not seeking wisdom, understanding, which says the beginning of understanding is the fear of the Most High. The fear of the Most High is to keep His commandments. So you're not seeking that first and foremost. Then your marriage, your union is never going to be fully blessed because you're not putting the Most High before everything else. Exodus chapter 22, verse 16.
Exodus chapter 22 and verse 16. The book of Exodus chapter 22 and verse 16, and it reads, And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife.
So we see again that the actual consummation was the marriage. So when you lied with that woman who was not betrothed, that was your wife. You had to do your duties, and she became your wife. So there's a lot more thought put into who we lay down with. There's a lot more weightier manner than it is today, and that's what we need to come back to. And you're also seeing that in the betrothal, they were held to the same standards because, again, the act of consummation is marriage. So during betrothal, they couldn't even engage anyone in that same matter either because you're betrothed to each other. This will be the last scripture, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 7.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 7. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 7, and it reads, And what man is there that hath betrothed a wife, and have not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her.
So we see an example of how detailed and beautiful our law is. So if we're going to war, right, and I'm betrothed to a woman, I've not taken her, I've not consummated the marriage, then I wasn't supposed to go to battle. I was supposed to be sent home. The captains were supposed to ask, has anyone betrothed a wife and not taken her? And then anyone that is in a situation gets sent home, they don't partake in the battle, and they go marry their wife. And they spend that first year with them. Do you got anything in time? So I hope that was edifying to y'all. Just seeing how detailed our ceremonial law is. Over the coming weeks, we're going to be diving into the moral law, the civil law, the sacrificial law, and seeing how the Most High started us to live. Seeing that He thought of everything, every little bit, down to my favorite one is that when our houses were flat, traditionally, we were supposed to put balcony rails up so no one fell and got hurt on our houses. It was just so detailed, down to taking care of the poor, down to celebrating the victories that He gave us. That's just beautiful. So with that said, I just like to send a blessing to the 12 tribes of Israel scattered abroad. This is Bible Basics. The first Monday of every month, we have Q&A. So any questions you want, any questions you've thought of, might not be able to ask someone, whether you're in the truth, you're coming out of Christian or Islam, wherever you're coming out of, bring those questions forth. It's live on both YouTube and Facebook, and we will do our best to answer your questions. We do not know everything, and we do not professionally know it, but we will do our best to answer it from Scripture. Then Tuesdays are Bible Basics. The second and fourth Mondays are our Spanish class. Wednesdays are World History from the Bible, where you really see how we got scattered throughout the world. You see the real history of the world, according to Scriptures, archaeology, anthropology. The brother's been doing a really good job bringing that out. The second Thursday is Stick to the Script, where we're going to more deeper topics with the script, some controversial issues within Israel. Then the fourth, we have current events. We tie in prophecy to what's going on now because prior to contrary belief, we are still in biblical times. Just what's written covers about a 3,000 to 4,000 year time span, and we are still in that prophecies, and prophecies are being done in front of our faces. Then every Friday, we got our opening Sabbath class. And every Saturday, we have our closing Sabbath class with Head Bishop Tazaiwan, where he really tries to get to the heart of the Spirit and really tries to teach us. So with that said, I want to say Kwam Yasharahla. I hope you're all having a great feast of dedication.